You do not.
Are you recording this?
Do not put that on there.
Hey, we won't.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Won't quit, I'm here to stay. Yeah.
Okay, so I've known about Hamskea a long time. I've met him at trade shows. Good dudes, really good dudes, all super geeky engineering. But I've never really ran their stuff until you kind of started carrying it. And I think you got me to switch from a trophy taker rest.
SmackDown Pro, probably.
SmackDown Pro to an Hamskea. I haven't looked back. And Josh usually doesn't steer me wrong. He's kind of my Yoda. Give these guys the why as to what they have to offer and kind of the different price points and why we're running them now.
Well, when Hamskea came out like 5-6 years ago, they pretty much picked up where Trophy Taker kind of stopped advancing. What these are is a very similar product in that regard. They make 3 different models that are hunting units. They make the Primer, the Hybrid Hunter Pro, and the Trinity. And not to be offensive to the Hybrid Hunter Pro, but I don't understand why it's even in there. It doesn't make any sense to me at all, and I'll tell you why. So the Primer does everything that a Hybrid Hunter Pro slide adjust model does. The only difference is you can't get a micro adjust version of it. This guy, you can get micro or slide in it, the Trinity. And there's only like $40 difference between a Hybrid Hunter Pro and the Trinity. And what the Trinity does that the Hybrid Hunter Pro doesn't do, it's got this little wraparound bar right here that supports your actual pivoting arm completely. So no matter how many arrows you put through the bow, no matter what you do with it, no matter how many hills you tumble down and bounce on your freaking gear, you're never gonna bend this thing ever. And the bearing that's in here is never gonna wear out ever because it doesn't have to pitch like a standard one does. If you look right here, any pressure on this guy isn't supported on this side. And 98, 99% of the rests like this are just like this, regardless of brand or whatever name you want to give it. The part that moves, the mechanism that rotates, isn't supported on the outside. This is the only bitch that is supported on the outside. So you can take this off your bow, pound in some nails with it later, whatever you need to do, and bolt it back on, and it's still gonna work, and it's still gonna function, and it isn't gonna rotate. So why are you being a cheap ass and trying to save $40 when this rest is easily twice as durable and good as that one I just chucked behind me? Not saying that rest isn't good, it is, but if you haven't bought a rest yet, don't be skimp the $40, or just drop down to the Primer and save yourself 30 or 40 bucks, because the Primer is basically a hybrid that isn't micro adjust. This also has a better cord attachment system for easily adjusting it in the field, and it has a arrow rest shelf in the back that's bolted to the rest and not sticking on your riser. That is why this is the best mofo on the planet for an arrow rest. There's nothing better, period. And I know that the MXT quad's really popular, but you know, if you've ever had one of those a lot and you get it hot, you get it wet, you get it dirty, you get it frozen, what have you, the cord tension is super specific on that thing.
Yeah.
And there is no easy way to adjust it. Like, you have to readjust the length or retie it or whatnot. And if that length isn't right, that rest won't fall right and your fletchings will nick it when it goes by. This thing always falls, no matter what, in any condition, in any environment. This is the best arrow rest made, period. I'm done.
Mm. So what questions for you, Josh? Wow, that's unique. I hope you guys enjoy this. So an arrow rest comes up, hold your arrow, and then the strings let loose. And we want that rest to stay up as long as possible, but clear the entire vein.
Yeah, and that's what limb-driven rests do. So
That's
because the limb's moving up, and that's what activates the rest up, this is a tension up rest that's tied onto the limb. So when your bow limb goes down, the cord that's attached to this guy pulls it down. So you're not relying on a spring to actually push your arrow rest down. The momentum and motion of your limb going down is what pulls it down, which is why this thing can't not go down no matter what you do to it, unless your cord gets stretched. And the Trinity rest has any idiot can adjust it in about 5 seconds.
I can adjust it, so there you go.
Well, yeah, there you go. I mean, anybody can do it. It's not hard. And they also do make this handy dandy little piece right here for if you're a Matthews guy, which I imagine if you're watching this channel you probably are, or there's a good chance you are. This replaces the lower bracket on the Halon and above on all the bows that they've made with that little metal clampy bracket that's on your limb that you may look at, that if you ever put it in a last chance press that you set the fingers on. This replaces the interior so you have an easy place to attach your cord to. Any limb-driven rest, this will work with. It doesn't have to be a Hamskea. So if it's a limb-driven rest, this little doodad, it's a nice little machined aluminum piece, really high quality. Definitely check it out. It's a better attachment than any other system. A lot of them are just like tying a knot around your axle or a little rubber piece stuck to your limb that the cord attaches on. It's a lot cleaner, it's a lot more reliable. But yeah, limb-driven is where it's at for accuracy and consistency over time. And Hamskea owns it. I mean, there's a couple other ones out there, and no offense to those products, but they're not half the product that this is. This thing is bomb-proof. This thing will last you forever. You will go through 5 bows and working.
That's pretty cool.
Period.
The other thing, and the last thing, is I've gotten a couple inquiries about, man, aren't Hamskeas louder than other rests? And I was kind of scratching my head. I've actually never noticed any sound, but is that a thing?
Well, so any rest that is pulled down and hits your riser, probably gonna make noise. So what you don't want to do is you don't want that launcher set up to when it goes forward. If it's loud, it's probably your shop that set it up, or if you set it up yourself, you didn't set it up right.
That makes sense.
You can't have that launcher hitting the riser or it's gonna make noise. If you want to have the launcher hitting your riser, you need to put a rubber pad or something underneath it so it has something to hit on. I set them up to where they're not hitting on that at all, period. And each of the containment rings on the cage actually has a spot that your launcher will hit on. So the only way that launcher is hitting your riser is if you have it too far forward and it's actually touching the riser. And that's an orientation setup thing. I'd like to know what instances that you're running into noise with, because I haven't found it at all. When we've set them up, we've not had an issue. Now on the primer, I've had a couple that I trimmed the edge of the launcher off to make sure it wasn't nicking the riser, because when you put it on, it was a little forward. So maybe that might be what you're coming up with, although this rest is like brand new, came out this year.
Yeah.
So the likelihood of that being where the noise is coming from?
I doubt it. What about V3s with this new roller guard system? Any issue with fit on the Hamskeas?
No, it actually fits great as long as you're trying to run your arrow through where the bolt hole is. If you try to move your arrow up above the bolt hole a ways, and you got to move the arrow rest up above, then you start running into the roller guard. The only issue you'll run into is if you use a Q-Lite quiver, you are going to need the little extra spacer that they sell separately. I think they're $30 a piece.
Yeah.
To put underneath your quiver to move the quiver away from the bow.
We got a video on
half
that.
inch.
Check this link right here. Watch that video. Josh has got the pro shop experience. He's a hunter, but I'm not a pro shop guy. I can tinker pretty good, but I'm really just a bow hunter. And the biggest thing that I've liked about Hamskea is that it is bulletproof for brush country bulls, which is what I cut my teeth growing up hunting North Idaho, is dealing with a lot of underbrush that's pulling. I've never had an issue with anything touching the cord. The rest is always dialed, and there has been at least 1 or 2 instances where I'm on a hunt, I look down, and the riser, the launch is just up slightly, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. And it's back in the game. So it's really been like awesome to be able to adjust it without tools in the field. It's bulletproof. And if you meet the people behind Hamskea, they're as diehard as it gets when it comes to target archery, bow hunting, and making badass accessories for archery.
Yeah, you find really good products in companies that are people that actually use them the way and the means in which you would use them. So you guys who work at the place, they're hunters, they're bow hunters, that's what they do, that's their thing. There's a couple of companies that are like that.
Yeah.
And they typically make products that are a little more handy for the hunter over the next.
So the Trinity has been on all my rigs for the last few years, as Josh previously mentioned, but you gotta remember, like, I'm not just hiking with a bow in my hand. That bow is a lot of times on my backpack with a spike camp. I'm covering lots of country and nothing's happened. It's survived those. I've been on an e-bike from Baku, cruising cat roads, chucking bugles. That bow is on my backpack, and I'm riding a dirt bike, single track, ruts, rocks, steep terrain, everything shaking. The Trinity is bulletproof. I depend on it to be bulletproof because you get one shot opportunity and you work your tail off for that shot opportunity. You don't want equipment failure. So you can mess around or you can just trust us, take it from us. We have no affiliation, no sponsorship. We just believe in Hamskea and we think it'd be a good option for you.
Since we've been selling Hamskea, 3 have been brought back with a problem. 3. Now, I'm not going to name names of other brands that we used to sell before we sold Hamskea, which that's been 6 years now or 5 years that we've been selling Hamskea. We would get 3 back a month with a problem. That's 3 in 5 years. That's a durable product.
We appreciate you guys' support MFJJ starting his own YouTube channel soon. We'll drop a link to that. Tap the subscribe button, hit the like button if you dig this, and we'll catch you on the next one.